Reborn, I definitely want to fall in love. Will no one be reborn without dating? If someone is reborn and doesn't fall in love, then I must have helped him with everything. Keywords of the novel. Who is still making a choice after being reborn? I want no pop-ups for everything. Who is still making a choice after being reborn? I want to download the complete TXT collection for everything. Who is still making a choice after being reborn? I want to read the latest chapters for everything. Chapter 1. Welcome Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Welcome Collection. The author is working hard to save the manuscript, and the babies they like will be collected and brought home first. We look forward to the future together. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Redo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Redo in 2024, Beijing. At a Starbucks coffee shop, 37-year-old Li Zhe looked at his blind date across from him. The girl looks like she's in her 20s or 60s, not short, and looks around 167 to the eye. She's not particularly good looking, but she has a good figure and fair skin. Against the backdrop of a black V-neck suspender dress, she looks a bit pretty. This blind date looks pretty good. The girl took a sip of coffee and put down her cup. I heard you work as a study abroad agent, and your income in this industry is not low, is it? Generally speaking, good months can earn 1 or 2,000 yuan, while bad off-season can only earn basic salary, said Li Zhe. The income in Beijing is a bit low. The girl's tone was clearly a bit lacking. You've been working for so many years, should you buy a house now? I have a 57 square meter old house outside the 3rd Ring Road, which is a 2-bedroom apartment. My mother and I live together. Li Zhe paused for a moment and said somewhat self-deprecatingly, it's just the old and dilapidated among many people. After listening, the girl's disappointment was even more evident, indicating that she was not very satisfied with Li Zhe's conditions. Aunt Wang, introducer, doesn't mean that your conditions are quite good. My conditions are not particularly poor, are they? Li Zhe said indifferently. If you had just graduated, the conditions would definitely not be bad, but you have been working in the capital for so many years. To put it bluntly, the conditions are indeed a bit poor. I heard you work as a manager at a 5-star hotel. How much can you open in a month? Not much, only 4 or 5,000, but it's almost enough for me to spend, the girl said calmly. A 5-star hotel manager who costs 4 to 5,000 yuan per month. The front desk is quite similar. Li Zhe shook his head in his heart. I really don't know where the other party comes from. A migrant worker who earns 4 to 5,000 yuan a month looks down on him. With a monthly salary of 10 to 20,000 yuan and a house in the capital. Even if it's just an old and shabby set. Is it because she is a woman who can have children? No, it's hard to say whether we can have a child or not. After a perfunctory conversation, the girl stood up and said, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Li Zhe stopped the other person and said, wait a moment, let's still be AA. AA. The girl looked incredulous. You, a big man, came out for a blind date and asked a girl to pay for a cup of coffee. Are you really kind? Li Zhe said calmly, isn't it about gender equality? If we can't make a blind date, we're just strangers. Shouldn't AA? No wonder you're almost 40 years old and still single. You're so stingy, which girl is blind to follow you? After transferring 40 yuan to Li Zhe, the girl picked up her handbag and left angrily. Li Zhe said behind her back, alas, you gave an extra 4 yuan. Damn it, I met another man with a lower head. The current men are getting worse and worse. The girl walked out of the cafe cursing and called a car from Gouda with her phone. After waiting for a while, before the ride-hailing service arrived, a blue Tesla Model S Plaid drove over. This car looks really nice. The girl instinctively glanced twice more, and in the future, when looking for a man, she would have to look for someone who drives this kind of car. The man who lowered his head just now, how far is it to go? Then she saw the Model S Plaid come to a stop in front of her, with the car window down. A man poked his head out and said, "You just gave me an extra $4, why don't I transfer it to you?" Seeing that it was Li Zhe, the girl was immediately confused and said, "Is this your car? You wouldn't be renting?" Li Zhe gave a playful smile and said, "If you think this can help you balance your mind a bit, then that's okay. I rented this car." After speaking, he stepped on the gas and drove away. Only the girl was left standing there in a daze. Half an hour later, Model S Plaid arrived outside the third ring road and drove into an old residential area. After Li Zhe parked the car, he didn't rush upstairs. Instead, he took out a pack of cigarettes, lit one, and took a strong puff. He actually rarely smokes, only occasionally when he is tired from work and in a bad mood. Later, I need to let my mother know that his blind date has failed again, and it's inevitable to have another nagging. In fact, if it weren't for his mother constantly urging him to get married and constantly helping him contact blind dates, Li Zhe wouldn't have gone on any blind dates. He is still unmarried in his 30s and 40s, but that doesn't mean he lacks a girlfriend. As a compassionate and good man, Li Zhe has been dating many good-looking girls in the past 7 or 8 years. His girlfriends have stronger conditions than their blind date just now. More importantly, he is young, and his sympathy never falls on girls over 23 years old. This has been over half a year now, and it's time for another one. With this in mind, Li Zhe picked up his phone and opened an album, flipping through it. But after picking for a while, I couldn't find a particularly satisfactory one. After the rise of live streaming, prices skyrocketed, and there were so many boiling sheep licking their lives, making it increasingly difficult for him to find a more satisfactory partner. Li Zhe sighed lightly and threw his phone aside, feeling a sense of emptiness in his heart. But Li Zhe felt that he was still passable, lacking in comparison and having surplus in comparison. From childhood to family conditions, he was relatively good, and his parents would try their best to meet any requirements. There were some setbacks in his studies, but in the end, he was able to get into a relatively decent university. Even if there was a family upheaval in his freshman year and his girlfriend broke up, he was depressed for a long time, but later he picked himself up and studied hard for over a year, passing the TOEFL exam. Then he went to work on the other side of the ocean for 4 or 5 years, saving his first bucket of gold in life. After returning to China, he partnered with friends to open a study abroad agency, gradually establishing a foothold in the capital. With a house and a car, he now has a net worth of over 10 million. Li Zhe's only regret is missing his youth. After the family upheaval, he only wants to make money and always thinks about what kind of woman cannot be found once he has money. But when he really had some money, he wanted to find a simple and beautiful girl to date and get married, but found it difficult to find and lost the mood and passion of his youth. Until now, we can only spend money to buy love. Li Zhe leaned his head against the seat, closed his eyes, and planned to take a break before going home to listen to his mother's nagging. If only life could be redone. He must talk to a few truly beautiful girlfriends while he is young, and then find a pure girl he truly likes to take over. No, it's getting married. Unfortunately, life never has an if. Classmate. Classmate. Wake up. The exam is coming soon, don't sleep. In a daze, Li Zhe felt someone pushing and shoving him, as if there were people around who were giggling. Who is this? No, isn't he in the car? Li Zhe's heart was startled and he completely woke up. He opened his eyes and looked at it, then he was completely confused. This is an unfamiliar classroom. More precisely, it is the exam room, with a male teacher standing next to him and a female teacher at the podium. The eyes of the candidates around him are focused on him as if watching a play. You can also fall asleep now, quickly wake up and take the exam. The male teacher finished speaking and walked away. Exam. What is this exam for? Is he dreaming? Or reborn? Lija's gaze instinctively fell on the admission ticket on the class desk, and he couldn't help but freeze again. The admission ticket for the 2007 Hehe Province National Unified College Entrance Examination. He reached out and pinched his thigh hard. It hurt a lot. It shouldn't be a dream. Is really reborn? Reborn when he took the college entrance examination. After a brief shock and surprise, Lija felt a bit uneasy. More than a decade has passed, and he has already returned the knowledge from high school to the teacher. Now, let him take the exam again. Isn't it deadly? I can only hope that this is not the first day of the college entrance examination, preferably the last English course. Is it really English? After the exam papers were distributed, Lija felt a sense of surprise that his dream had come true. He took the TOEFL exam and worked on the other side of the ocean for 4 or 5 years, still working as a study abroad agent. For him, English is a skill to eat. He will definitely not fail the exam again this time. In his previous life, Lija failed the high school entrance exam, but only managed to get into a second-tier university due to his failure in the English exam. He has the strongest proficiency in Chinese and comprehensive literature, especially in Chinese. He can score above 120 points in every exam, but he is weak in mathematics and English, and even the worst English is difficult to pass. When he took the college entrance examination, his mentality was a bit unstable because he didn't do well in listening, resulting in only getting 67 points in English in the end. Even though he excelled in Chinese and scored 135 points, he still failed to pass the first-year English exam due to a severe drop in scores. His total score was 547, compared to 567 in the first-tier exam back then. How could I not understand such simple listening skills back then? After easily answering the listening section, Lija started answering the written test section again, but he finished all the questions with a score of 40. But he didn't rush to submit the paper. Instead he checked it several times and confirmed that there were no errors before starting to apply the answer sheet. Ringing bells. The bell rang for the end of the exam, and Lija handed in his paper and walked briskly out of the examination room. If nothing unexpected happens, he should be able to score above 130 in English this time. In this way, the total score has reached 610, and for humanities, the 985 to 211 double first class is definitely stable. At this moment, Lija couldn't help but believe that starting over his life again would definitely make a big difference. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Good Girls and Bad Girls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Good Girls and Bad Girls. At the entrance of the 17th Middle School Entrance Exam Center, there were crowds of parents, as well as vendors selling fruit snacks and small advertisements for tutoring classes. As the exam ended, the candidates gradually walked out of the examination room, and parents gathered around, searching for their children's figures in the crowd and asking about their performance with concern. Li Zhigang walked out of the school gate with the surging crowd and saw a woman in her 40s and 50s standing not far away, smiling and waving at him. Xiao Zhi sighed. Seeing his young, outgoing, and smiling mother, Li Zhi couldn't help but be stunned, with mixed emotions and an indescribable feeling surging in his heart. In his freshman year, there was an accident in his family, and his mother Zhao Xinmei was greatly affected. Her personality became extreme and talkative. Note that Li Zhi's expression is not right. Zhao Xinmei thought he didn't do well in the exam. Did he not perform well? It's okay, if it doesn't work out, let's repeat it for a year. Li Zhi's expression returned to normal, and he even smiled confidently, saying, "Mom, don't worry, your son has performed exceptionally well this time. Choose any 985/211. Zhao Xinmei listened, but didn't believe it at all. Alright, 985/211. If you can get into an ordinary one, I'll be satisfied. Then she handed a flyer in her hand to Li Zhi. This computer training is free. You can go and learn during holidays if you have nothing to do. Learn more and you may need it in the future. Li Zhe took a look and found that it was a youth employment training organized by the Municipal Youth League Working Committee, mainly studying Wubi typing and software office. Mom, let's go home. His home is located in the community opposite number 17 middle school, junior high school, very close, only 100 or 200 meters away. Seeing Li Zhe about to leave, Zhao Xinmei grabbed him and said, "Why are you so anxious to go home? Yang Yang hasn't come out yet." Yang Yang. Li Zhe finally remembered that he had a girlfriend at this time. Su Yang. Li Zhe and Su Yang are classmates in the same class. As they are both top students in the humanities class and have had more contact, he gradually developed a liking for Su Yang, who is beautiful, charming, and lively in personality. Su Yang is a boarding student, while Li Zhe is a day student. The food in the school cafeteria is not good, so Li Zhe often helps Su Yang buy breakfast. Whenever there is anything delicious at home, he always wants to leave a portion for her. As time went on, the classmates in the class noticed the signs and coaxed them into being a pair. Li Zhe acquiesced, but Su Yang did not refute. The two naturally got together like this. However, Su Yang said that she didn't want dating to affect her studies. In high school, the two of them became friends first, studied together, and made progress together. They will officially be together after the college entrance examination. Li Zhe also strongly agreed with Su Yang's idea at that time. Therefore, although the two are quasi-boyfriend and girlfriend, their closest contact is limited to holding hands. After the college entrance examination, Su Yang chose to go to Beijing. In order to be with her, Li Zhe gave up the Ice City Normal University he wanted to apply for and went to Beijing with her. However, their nominal relationship only lasted for 1 semester. In the second semester of her freshman year, shortly after Li Zhe's family underwent a family upheaval, Su Yang broke up with him on the grounds that they were not suitable for each other, and soon after, she was with a wealthy second generation. After many years, Li Zhe looked back and realized that Su Yang might not have liked him before. He could only say that he had a slight liking for him, but rather enjoyed the feeling of being taken care of by him. Under the instigation of his classmates, it was difficult to refuse, so he found an excuse to be together again after the college entrance examination. After the college entrance examination, everyone will be far apart, and being together is just empty talk. She just didn't expect that Li Zhe would apply to the same university as her. She couldn't help but say that the agreement didn't count, so she became Li Zhe's girlfriend in name for half a year and also enjoyed his care for half a year. Just as Li Zhe was reminiscing about the past, Zhao Xinmei suddenly waved and smiled across the street, "Yang Yang." Li Zhe followed her gaze and saw a sweet and lovely little girl about 160 tall walking out of the school. The girl was wearing a short floral dress, revealing a section of her fair and tender calves. She had a fluffy ponytail, a small face the size of a palm, round and large eyes, clear and transparent, and a perky little nose. Her pale pink lips looked moist and soft. More than a decade has passed, and Li Zhe can no longer remember Su Yang's appearance clearly. He only remembers that she was very sweet, cute, and pretty. Now it seems that she is indeed not bad. Especially her skin is particularly white and tender, as if she can squeeze water out, and her petite stature, coupled with a delicate face, makes people particularly occupied. Cough, it's a protective desire. The girls that Li Zhe has sponsored are not inferior to Su Yang in terms of appearance, but none of them are as tender and pure as her. There's no way, who wants him to have enough money? Those who are particularly beautiful and pure are not his turn to take care of. Auntie. Su Yang walked over and warmly greeted Zhao Xinmei. Yang Yang, how did you do on the exam? Zhao Xinmei took Su Yang's hand and liked her very much. I did pretty well in the exam and should be able to pass the second-tier entrance examination. That's good. Unlike parents who oppose their children's early love, Zhao Xinmei showed great support for Li Zhe and Su Yang's love affair, believing that her son's ability to find a girlfriend early is a good thing, as long as it does not affect her studies. She particularly likes Su Yang, who is good-looking, good at studying, intelligent and sensible. Her only drawback is that she is a bit short. On weekends, she asks Li Jie to bring her home for dinner and often makes some delicious dishes for Li Jie to bring to her. It can even be said that she is considered a part of the family. Li Jie looked at Su Yang, who was talking to his mother, but was thinking about whether to break up early and dumped him first. But this idea was just a flash, and he immediately denied it. A fool would break up now. He took care of Su Yang for 2 or 3 years without taking any advantage. No, how can this be called taking advantage? It's the power he should exercise as a boyfriend, and he hasn't exercised it at all. Isn't it too bad to break up? What did that famous saying say? Don't disappoint a good girl, and don't waste a bad girl. How could he still take one? To make up for the physical and mental injuries he suffered in his previous life, and then dump him? Never mind, as a man, he should be more magnanimous and let Su Yang dump him. Even if he had to bear the blame of cheating for it, he accepted it. It seemed to have noticed that Li Jie was staring at her. Su Yang turned his head and asked with a smile, Li Jie, how did you do on your English exam? It's okay, isn't it? Li Jie passed by and then smiled at Su Yang, saying, Su Yang, don't you remember our agreement? Su Yang hesitated for a moment and looked a bit unnatural. Remember, he said, can I exercise my boyfriend's rights now? After Li Jie finished speaking, he didn't give Su Yang a chance to refuse. He slightly lowered his head and pointed to his cheek, gesturing for her to kiss him. Su Yang's expression showed a hint of embarrassment, and he looked at Zhao Xinmei on the side as if seeking help, only to find that Zhao Xinmei was just smiling and had no intention of stopping her. She hesitated for a moment and lightly touched Li Jie's face, but unexpectedly, Li Jie suddenly turned his head and kissed her lips. Su Yang was stunned for a moment or two before he realized it. He blushed with embarrassment and said with a hint of anger, how could you do this? Halfway through, she realized that her tone was not right. She softened a bit and glanced at Zhao Xinmei again, Auntie is still here. Li Jie pretended to be pleasantly surprised and said, so as long as my mother is not here, it can be like this. Mom, hurry up and avoid it. That won't do. Su Yang quickly said. Zhao Xinmei, who was standing beside her, just smiled and said, all right, Xiaojia, don't bully Yang anymore. Li Jie smiled casually, and the inexperienced little girl's teasing was just fun. Let's go home. Your dad should have prepared his meal and waited for us. After finishing speaking, Zhao Xinmei said to Su Yang, Yang, why don't you come home with us and have dinner before leaving? Auntie, no need. I've agreed with my family to go back early after the exam. Okay, Auntie won't keep you any longer. Xiaojia, you're sending Yang. Li Jie took Su Yang to a nearby bus stop. Su Yang's family is located in Binjiang County, under the jurisdiction of Xingshan City, and they need to take a bus to the bus station. In the previous life, Li Jie licked his dog very much. No, he was very considerate and took Su Yang all the way to the bus station, watching her get on the bus. At the station, Su Yang said to Li Jie, just deliver it here. You can go back. Zhao Xinmei is gone, she appears a bit cold. Can you kiss me again? Seeing Su Yang's face clearly showing unwillingness, Li Jie turned to smile and said, can you give it a hug? First, make an excessive request, and then make a small request. At this point, the likelihood of the small request being met will increase, which is called the face-saving effect. Sure enough, Su Yang hesitated for a moment and did not refuse. Li Jie opened his arms and took a step forward, tightly embracing her petite body. His little girlfriend has an impeccable figure, white and tender, and is very comfortable to hold. All right. Su Yang said softly after about 10 seconds. All right. Li Jie didn't take any further steps and just let go of her. The day ahead is long, there is no need to rush. At this moment, a bus from afar came over. I'm leaving, Su-young said. She felt as if Leisha had suddenly changed, becoming bold and even a bit reckless. The two of them have been together for almost 2 years, and he has been behaving properly, but just now he dared. Wait a minute. Leisha stopped Su-young again, and in her slightly puzzled gaze, he reached out to pet and rub her hair. Alright, let's go. Remember to send me a message when you get home. Okay. When the bus left, Leisha immediately restrained his smile and his face became cold. Back then, he was really too honest, or rather too innocent. If I had some means, I would have taken Su-young down long ago. As long as you have the status of a boyfriend and the girl doesn't particularly dislike you, it's not difficult to win him. With a substantial breakthrough, even if the two cannot succeed in the end, they can still have a year or two of love, at least not at a disadvantage. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Short-term life planning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Short-term life planning. The location of Leisha's house is very good, just in the city center, less than 1 kilometer away from the busiest pedestrian street in Xingshan City. More than a decade later, Xingshan became a well-known internet celebrity city nationwide due to the rise of cabbage housing prices. But in this era, Xingshan had not yet undergone large-scale shantytown renovations, with small bungalows everywhere and relatively high property prices. Naturally, houses in the city center were more expensive. This 64 square meter small 2-bedroom apartment was bought by Zhao Xinmei a few years ago for over 80,000 yuan, averaging over 1,300 square meters. More than 80,000 yuan was not a small amount at that time, and the average housing price in Shanghai was only 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. The main reason why Zhao Xinmei was able to spend so much money to buy a house in full is because she was able to do it. After being laid off from a department store in the 1990s, she set up a stall to sell fruits, and in a few years, she started a wholesale business of fruits. In earlier years, she made a lot of money. On the contrary, Li's father, Li Liqiao, may seem like a college student from the 1970s and 1980s, but he has a bit of high ambitions and low skills. At the time of graduation assignment, I offended someone by speaking and was unable to stay in Bingcheng. I was assigned to Xingshan. In the 1990s, he learned from others to do business overseas and went to the south to do business. However, after going there for 1 or 2 years, not only did he not make any money, but he also lost his job on the railway. After returning, he could only work with Zhao Xinmei to wholesale fruits. Upon seeing Li Zhe and Zhao Xinmei return, Li Liqiao, who was lying on the living room sofa watching TV, immediately sat up. How did you do on the afternoon exam? Xiao Zhe said he played well and probably could make it to the next level, Zhao Xinmei said with a smile as she glanced at Li Zhe. It's not about being able to make it to the next level, it's about being more focused and stable, corrected Li Zhe. Alright, you're still working hard, heavy book. It's a bit possible that you'll have to repeat for a year, Zhao Xinmei said. Li Liqiao didn't speak, but he clearly didn't believe it either. Seeing that the two of them didn't believe it, Li Zhe smiled and said, if I really got into a prestigious university, how do you plan to reward me? If you really can pass the exam, I'll reward you with a new phone and a laptop, Li Liqiao said with a smile. That's not the reward for me getting into an ordinary first-tier university. A heavy university is not something that an ordinary first-tier university can compete with. What reward do you want? Zhao Xinmei asked with a smile. Why don't you buy me a house? Li Zhe said in a half-joking and half-serious tone. Buying a house. Zhao Xinmei and Li Liqiao were both surprised upon hearing this. Why are you buying a house? Don't we have a house at home? It's not buying a house in Xingshan, Li Zhe shook his head. He only bought a house in Xingshan because his head was sandwiched between the door panels. Su-young wants to go to university in the capital city, and I plan to go with her. After graduation, I also plan to stay there for development. It's better to buy a house in advance. The housing prices in the capital have been rising all along, and buying a house now is definitely a sure bet. Yang Yang is going to the capital to attend university. Zhao Xinmei was a bit surprised and thought for a moment before saying, buying a house is not a small matter. You can't make a hasty decision. You haven't applied for it yet, so it's uncertain whether you too can go to school in the capital. Let's wait and see. How could Li Jia not hear it? What Zhao Xinmei said was just a perfunctory excuse, but he didn't say anything more. It is impossible for his mother to take out all her family savings and make a down payment to buy a house in the capital. She is the kind of person who firmly believes that housing prices will definitely decrease and is very unwilling to take out loans. We can only find a way to cut it first and report it later. We can't just watch the little savings that our family has finally saved up. With this thought in mind, Li Jia's gaze fell on his cheap father. Coincidentally, Li Liqiao also looked over and said to him with a serious and sincere tone. Xiao Jie, you are about to go to college and can be considered an adult. You must learn to be independent. In the future, when buying a house and getting married, you cannot rely on your family. You still need to rely on your own efforts. Zhao Xinmei frowned as she listened and interrupted him, saying, What are you talking about? Xiao Jie, who does he rely on if he doesn't rely on his family? He's already in his 23rd or 4th year after graduation, and he's relying on himself to earn money, save the down payment, and save the dowry. When he saves enough money, it's already over 30, so it won't be too late to find a partner. At least we need to prepare the down payment for the house and the dowry for him. Isn't it for him to make money? Who won't give it to him? Li Liqiao said somewhat awkwardly. I just told Xiao Jie that he needs to learn to be independent and can't rely solely on his family. There's no other point. No other meaning. Li Jia gave his father a deep glance and sneered in his heart. Zhao Xinmei turned to say, Forget it, let's hurry up and eat. Did you buy all the vegetables? She said to Li Liqiao. No, I didn't buy it. Why didn't you buy it? I didn't ask you to come back early today and buy some cooked and cold dishes, and then Xiao Jie and I will stir-fry a few more hot dishes when we come back, and we can eat. Oh my, I've been busy all day and I'm quite tired. You should go buy it, said Li Liqiao, lying down on the sofa again. Okay, I'll go buy it, you just lie here. Zhao Xinmei was clearly angry. Why bother asking you to do some work? Li Jia stood up from the sofa and said, Mom, I'll accompany you. No need, you're quite tired after the exam. Why don't you go back to your room and take a break? Zhao Xinmei went out to buy groceries, and Li Jia had nothing to say to his father, so he went back to his room. His room is very small, less than 10 square meters, with a single bed and a combination design of a bookshelf and wardrobe. There are many new and old novels and comics on the bookshelf, and a computer on the desk, which is the kind of big belly monitor. There is a wooden guitar hanging on the wall, and several celebrity posters. In the corner, there is a basketball and 2 dumbbells for exercise. Li Jia looked at this familiar yet unfamiliar room with great emotion. Since he went to college in his previous life, he has never been able to return to this room again. In the second semester of his freshman year, Li Jia's cheap father took away more than 300,000 yuan from his family, including nearly 100,000 yuan borrowed from relatives and friends. He ran to the south with a small widow who was selling fruits at a stall. In order to repay the money of her relatives and friends, her mother Zhao Xinmei had to sell the house. It is normal for men to have some degree of lascivious tendencies. But like his cheap father, abandoning his wife and children, taking all the money from the family to help others raise children, it's not a good thing. He deserves to be punished. When he gets old and can't do anything, he is kicked out of the house. Li Jia took a deep breath and sat down at the desk, turning on the computer to check something. This computer has just moved into this new home, and Zhao Xinmei spent more than 3,000 yuan to save it for him to study conveniently. The configuration is very low, and after 3 or 4 years, it has become completely outdated. After waiting for 3 or 4 minutes, the computer finally started successfully. Li Zhe clicked on the browser and checked the housing prices in Beijing first. 2007 was a year of significant increase in housing prices in the capital, especially after June when prices fluctuated day by day, with an annual increase of 41.2%. It seems that we must hurry up and buy a house, otherwise we will have to wait until next year after the subprime mortgage crisis erupts. More than half an hour later, Li Zhe put down his mouse, took out a pen and paper, and started writing on the paper stroke by stroke. 1. Admit to a prestigious school. 2. Make your first bucket of gold as soon as possible, a small goal. 3. Find a girlfriend you truly like, excluding Su Yang. This is the short-term goal he has set for his rebirth. Li Zhe thought for a moment and added another note. 4. Publish a best-selling book as soon as possible. Attending prestigious schools, publishing books, starting a business in college, earning his first bucket of gold and becoming a prominent figure in the school. In this way, his life resume looks no worse than those business tycoons at the beginning. Then, Li Zhe drew a key line below the second one. For ordinary people, the most difficult thing to start a business is the first capital. In the previous life, Li Zhe's entrepreneurial capital was saved up by working on the other side of the ocean for 4 or 5 years, saving money and working hard. Although he has been reborn now, he still faces difficulties in raising funds. What are the fastest ways to make money after being reborn? The World Cup, stocks, and lottery tickets that win are very mysterious. World Cup. Li Zhe never watches the ball, and the only thing he remembers is that in 2002, the South Korean team made it to the semi-finals through a referee's black whistle. Stocks. In 2007, it was a rare bull market in 100 years in China. You can make money by closing your eyes and buying stocks, let alone knowing a few bull stocks. But stock trading also requires funds. If the money is too little, just playing around and wasting such a good opportunity is in vain. The bull market will only have less than 6 months left, and the economic crisis and stock market crash will come next year. There are 250,000 to 60,000 yuan in savings at home, but this money can only be used to buy a house, not necessarily enough. If his mother Zhao Xinmei finds out that he has used all his savings to invest in stocks, it is likely that she will get angry and fall ill. Lottery. Not to mention that he cannot remember lottery numbers from over a decade ago. Even if he can truly remember lottery numbers, he may not necessarily win. In China, lottery is not only about probability, statistics, but also about mysticism. Wait. Li Zhe suddenly remembered something. He really had a chance to get a prize of 250,000 yuan. However, in order to get that 250,000, a certain amount of capital investment is needed. Li Zhe opened the drawer on one side of the desk, took out a passbook from inside, and opened it to take a look at the balance on it. 967.86 yuan. This money may not be enough. Li Zhe is the type of person who likes to save money and doesn't like to spend money recklessly. He has saved up most of his pocket money and New Year's money from childhood to adulthood, about 6 or 7,000 yuan, which is stored in a postal current account book. But since he went to high school and was with Su Yang, he has never saved any money again, and the money in his passbook is getting smaller and smaller. All the money was spent on Su Yang, buying her clothes and snacks. Mainly buying snacks. Su Yang is the type of cat girlfriend who not only looks petite and sweet, but also has a similar personality. Lazy and a bit drowsy, cunning and cute yet rational and composed, and also a bit greedy like a cat. She was with Li Zhe, not so much looking for a boyfriend as finding a free meal ticket. Li Zhe shook his head in his heart and put the passbook back. Sure enough, having a girlfriend will only make a man poor. It seems that he must earn more money in the future, or how about raising more beautiful girlfriends? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Estimated score for returning to school. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Estimated score for returning to school 3 days later, on the day of returning to school to estimate scores. After waking up early in the morning, Soo-young picked up the phone next to his pillow and glanced at it. It was past 7 o'clock. The teacher notified me to arrive at the school at 9 a.m. this morning to estimate the score. Soo-yang's family is located in Binjiang County, under the jurisdiction of Xingshan, more than 180 kilometers away from the city center. It takes 2 to 3 hours by car, so she came early yesterday afternoon and stayed in the dormitory for the night. There are still no new messages. Soo-young threw his phone aside, sat up, and took a long breath. Leisha hasn't contacted her for 3 days. On the day she returned home after the college entrance examination, she sent a text message to Leisha to report her safety. Leisha only replied with a good word, and then there was no further news. Not to mention making phone calls, she never sent a single text message. Previously, Leisha always kept asking for warmth and comfort, asking what he was doing, whether he had eaten or slept. It made her feel that he was a bit annoying and didn't want to talk to him. Many times, when she saw news, she would deliberately not reply. But now Leisha suddenly stopped contacting her, not a single text message left, which made her feel uncomfortable. Soo-young instinctively touched his lips, soft and unable to help but think of the scene where Leisha forcefully kissed her. At that time, their lips only touched and there was not much feeling, but it was her first kiss after all. This guy took advantage of her and put on a show. Thinking this way, Soo-young picked up her phone again. She had an impulse to call Leisha directly and ask him what he was doing these days and why he didn't contact her. But soon she restrained herself again, making it seem as if she couldn't do without him. No, she couldn't take the initiative. Anyway, it's estimated that Leisha will definitely come today. Let's see his performance then. If we don't give her a reasonable explanation, she will definitely not easily forgive him. Get up and go to the restroom for a simple wash. Soo-young took out a white lace shirt and black short skirt from the backpack he brought and put them on. Then he took out a small makeup bag and started putting on makeup. First, apply a thin layer of foundation make up on your face, then apply powder blusher to make your appearance look better, and draw eyebrows. Finally, apply a layer of light pink lipstick on your lips. She looked left and right in the small mirror and felt very satisfied. I believe Leisha will definitely look straight in the eye. In terms of more than a decade later, I won't be obsessed with you just like a small sample. Young, you're here. Are you dressed so beautifully today? At around 9 o'clock, when Soo-young arrived at the classroom, he found that many people had already arrived, but there was no figure of Leisha. How did you two do on the exam? A girl wearing frameless glasses with a slightly sturdy figure said to Soo-young and another petite and slender girl. Without waiting for Soo-young and the others to answer, she said dejectedly again, I failed the exam. I estimate that a score of 400 is enough. I don't feel like I did very well on the exam, said the petite and slender girl. Young, what about you? I did average in the exam. The girl with glasses and a slightly sturdy figure is called Jiang Yan, the girl with a petite and slender figure is called Ding Liao, and with Soo-young, all three of them are top students in the humanities class, with the hope of entering the undergraduate program. Leisha should have done well in the exam, right? He's the only one in our humanities class who has a chance of getting into the top tier, Jiang Yan said again. I have to ask Yang. Ding Liao smiled and looked at Soo-young, where's Leisha? Why didn't he come with you? I don't know what he's doing, Soo-young said in a flat tone. Why, are you two having a disagreement? What are you talking about? Suddenly, a male voice came in. Soo-young and the others looked in the direction of the sound and saw Leisha walking in from outside the classroom. Li, you're dressed too handsome today. Ding Liao said in surprise. After speaking, she turned her head to look at Su Yang and said, you two must have made an appointment to go on a date. Why are you all dressed so beautifully? Su Yang looked at Li in a daze. After a few days, he didn't see a big change in his image. His refreshing and neat hairstyle, casual and avant-garde attire, and a faint smile on his face gave him a feeling of being a male lead in a Korean drama. I never noticed before, he was quite a bit handsome. Li looked at Su Yang and was also a bit teased. A stylish white lace top paired with a black short skirt accentuates the slender waist. With a gentle grip, the pure and sweet face is slightly powdered, adding a touch of charm. The pink lips are delicate and tempting, making people want to taste them. No wonder he willingly licked for 2 or 3 years back then. No, he really put in 2 or 3 years of effort. This Su Yang really grew up in his aesthetics. Isn't dressing up so beautifully today just to see me? Seeing Li being so self-righteous, Su Yang couldn't help but glare at him, as if saying that you were overthinking, and then don't turn your head to ignore him. Why are you angry? Li took a few steps forward, reached out to grab Su Yang's waist, and then kissed her fair and tender face. What are you doing? Su Yang was taken aback by his bold actions, and his classmates in the classroom began to cheer up one after another. Oh my God, I kissed you. In public, you two pay attention to your influence. Kiss again. Kiss again. In the past, when classmates in the class were so noisy, Su Yang appeared to be smiling and dealing with it, but in fact, she felt a bit disgusted. But today, for some reason, she didn't feel any disgust in her heart, and even had a little enjoyment. What have you been busy with these days? Why hasn't there been a single phone call? She couldn't help but ask. Are you missing me? Who missed you? I just asked casually. Looking at Su Yang's stern expression, Li couldn't help but smile in his heart. Chasing girls should not be too tight. You should learn to play hard and let the other person hang out appropriately, otherwise it is easy to become a licking dog. He used to only know how to be kind to Su Yang, only willing to give, come and go as soon as he called, and be obedient to her. Thinking about it now, it's simply foolish enough. It's typical to become a licking dog without realizing it. The better you unconditionally treat someone, the less they will take you seriously. I've been busy looking for a job these past few days. Looking for a job. Do you want to work during the summer vacation? Su Yang was a bit surprised when he heard this. Yeah, I want to earn money to support you. Li coaxed and said. Working. Working is impossible, he will never work for others again in his lifetime. However, Su Yang believed it to be true and felt a little sweet in his heart, completely unaware that Li would deceive her. Can you two not be so greasy and crooked? Jiang Yan interjected, her expression really unbearable. Then she said, Li, how did you do on the exam? I failed the exam, and both Yang Yang and Yao Yao said they didn't do well on the exam. Li glanced at Su Yang in his arms and then at Ding Liao next to him. He smiled and said, I did pretty well in the exam. If he remembers correctly, Su Yang did quite well in the college entrance examination this time, and Ding Liao performed exceptionally well in the 3rd tier and was admitted to the 2nd tier. Only Jiang Yan really messed up the exam. She didn't even pass the 3rd tier exam and chose to repeat. It can only be said that girls have a lot of thoughts when they are young, and when asked, they just don't do well in exams, and their grades get higher and higher one by one. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Yen Normal University. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Yen Normal University. How did you all do on the exam? A stylish female teacher in her 40s walked in from outside. It's Chen Xiaoyan, the homeroom teacher of Li and his humanities class. I asked Ligia and several top students one by one about their performance in the exam. After hearing that they all did well, Chen Xiaoyan's face showed a pleased smile. That's right, in front of Chen Xiaoyan, Su Yang and Ding Liao both changed their minds again and said they did well in the exam. Jiang Yan's expression on the side was extremely exciting, as if she was saying that you two were fooling me. After the teachers of various subjects handed out the college entrance examination papers and reference answers, Su Yang and Ding Liao began to help check the answers and estimate the scores. Ligia only checked the English test paper and how he answered Chinese, mathematics, and comprehensive literature back then. He didn't remember it for a long time, but only remembered that he scored 135 in Chinese, 113 in mathematics, 232 in comprehensive literature, and 67 in English, with a total score of 547. And back then, the first-tier score was 567 points. If it weren't for a complete failure in the English exam, he would have had no problem with his previous one. The same goes for this time. Whether or not one can attend a better double first-class university depends entirely on how well they perform in their English exams. All listening is correct. One wrong choice in a single item will result in a deduction of 1 point, 2 wrong closed tests will result in a deduction of 3 points, reading comprehension is basically correct, and correcting 2 incorrect sentences will result in a deduction of 2 points. Writing the more Ligia feels about the answer, the better his mood will be. Excluding the essay, only 6 points were deducted in total. He wrote his essay very succinctly and clearly, trying to avoid using overly complex vocabulary and grammar, and not wanting to impress the grading teacher. He only wanted to score steadily, and it is estimated that at most 3 or 4 points will be deducted. By this calculation, he should be able to score 140 points in English, which is even better than he had anticipated before. Subtract 67 from 547 and add 140, which means the total score can reach 620. Except for a few top universities in China such as Xuemu, Yanda, and Zhejiang University, I have chosen almost any other double first-class universities for this score in humanities. For the reborn Ligia, education is no longer as important, but if possible, who wouldn't want to attend a double first-class school? Although this era is filled with the argument that academic qualifications are useless, the most commonly cited example is Bill Gates dropping out of Harvard to start a business. But anyone with a little experience understands that this statement is simply nonsense. Robin Lee, Rebus, Richard Liu. These emerging internet giants are basically graduates from famous schools, so the IRMA degree is almost an ordinary one. Entering a prestigious school not only provides knowledge, but also insight, structure, spiritual realm, and most importantly, connections. Bill Gates dropped out of school, but he has also attended Harvard, and he has obtained everything he needs to learn and the connections he needs to make. Ligia opened the recently published Guidelines for Filling Out College Entrance Examination Volunteers, and focused on the universities in Beijing. He chose to go to university in the capital again not for Su Yang, but only by going to university in the capital can he make more useful connections and pave the way for future development. Otherwise, who can I make friends with if I stay in northeast China to attend university? The Shanghai market is also an alternative, but the universities on the other side of the Shanghai market are relatively exclusive, and as a northerner, he is not used to studying in the south. The person is pretty good, but the score is too high. The only options available are normal university, foreign language university, and University of Finance and Economics. As a humanities student, I can't go to a university with a focus on science, can I? The key is that there are too few female students in STEM universities, and beautiful women are even rarer. Finally, Ligia's gaze fell on Yen Normal University and he decided to fill in his first choice. If he followed the transfer, there was a great possibility of being admitted. For him, his major is not important, the reputation of the school is even more important. Yanshi University ranks among the top 20 universities in China, making it the strongest university in Beijing besides Xuemu, Yanda, and Renmin University. Moreover, there are more female students in normal universities, making it easier to find girlfriends. Li Jie didn't forget the goal he had set before. 3. Find a girlfriend you truly like as soon as possible, excluding Su Yang. But if he can really get into Yen Normal University, wouldn't it break the best grades in the liberal arts class since the establishment of Yueying High School? The school should give some rewards, right? The Yueying Middle School where Li Jie is located is just a third-rate private high school. Science is relatively good, some have been admitted to prestigious universities such as Jilin University and Zhejiang University, while humanities are relatively weak, and the school has not produced a major in the past decade. With a loud click, Jiang Yan threw the pen in her hand onto the table, let out a long sigh, and said dejectedly, I calculated it, and it only scored over 380 points, which is considered a complete failure in the exam. Li Jie, have you finished estimating the score? Can you join the first tier? It should be similar. Li Jie didn't tell the truth. He usually shows his grades there. He only passed one of the 3 mock exams, and now he suddenly says that his total score can reach 600. Who would believe that? So you did really well in the exam. When Li Jie said she could get into a book, Jiang Yan's tone was a bit complicated, both envious and a bit jealous. How did you all do on the exam? A tall boy, black like a coal ball and wearing a pair of black framed glasses, stood up from the back and came to Li Jie's seat. He gave him a hard pat on the shoulder, his face full of showing off and showing off. I calculated and the total score should not be lower than 570. Upon hearing the boy's words, Su Yang and Ding Liao both raised their heads in surprise and looked at each other with a slightly incredulous expression. Last year, the first-tier university in Hehe province scored 557 points, and if it were really 570 points, it would basically be able to secure a top-tier university. Li Jie glanced at the tall black boy with a slightly playful tone and said, Really, did you perform so well? Congratulations. This boy's name is Yin Jiqiang, and he always looks arrogant and coaxing. He feels too good about himself. He is as black as Nigel, always holding a small mirror to look at him all day, feeling extremely handsome and achieving academic results at the level of a third-tier university. However, he always feels that no one in the class is as smart as him. However, this time this kid's self-perception was too positive. His score of less than 400 was overestimated, and when the score came out, he became a laughing stock and didn't even have the face to attend the graduation party. By the way. Suddenly, Li Jie remembered something and wrapped his arm around Yin Jiqiang's shoulder. Xiaoqiang, the 100 yuan you borrowed from me has been almost a year now, and it's time to repay it, right? As a big man, you definitely wouldn't do that shameless thing of borrowing money and not repaying it, would you? Li Jie deliberately raised his voice, causing many classmates in the class to look towards the two of them. Yin Jiqiang's originally proud and conspicuous expression immediately froze on his face. He forced a smile and said perfunctorily, I don't have any money on me. Let's do it next time. I will definitely repay you next time. After he finished speaking, he wanted to break free from Li Jie's arm, but Li Jie tightly hugged him and his tone became impolite. Next time. After estimating the score, everyone went their separate ways. Where should I go to find you? It's easy if you don't have money. Don't you have 2 girlfriends? Let them help you repay it. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Debt repayment, it's natural. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Debt repayment, it's natural. Don't be fooled by the fact that Yin Jiqiang is as black as Nigel, with a height of just over 1.8 meters and the ability to sing 2 broken songs. He can also play basketball quite well. There are really girls who like him. Even though he knew he had a girlfriend whom he had been talking about for a year or 2, he had to force himself into a fight for a husband. And this kid also has an ambiguous attitude, swaying between the 2 girls, even feeling smug and self-satisfied. Regarding this matter, Li Jie was also quite speechless back then. It can only be said that the more scumbags a man is, the more girls like him. Seeing Ligia forcing him to repay the money and publicly exposing the fact that he had stepped on two boats, Yin Jiqiang's face suddenly couldn't hang up and became unsightly. Isn't it just 100 yuan, Ligia? Are you still there? As he spoke, he rummaged through his pocket and found a 50 yuan and a 10 yuan banknote, tossing it on the desk. I'll give you 60 yuan first, and the remaining 40 yuan. I'll give it to you at the class reunion, he said. Ligia looked at the other person and sneered, did I make a mistake when borrowing money together? You've been dragging on borrowing money from others for a year and refusing to repay it, but instead it makes sense. What the hell? I don't have any free time to ink with you anymore. You must repay this money today. If the money is not enough, let your two girlfriends help you raise it. After speaking, he turned to Su Yang and said, Yang, go to class 2 and call Chen Limei over. Chen Limei is the girl who was intervened by a third party. Su Yang hesitated for a moment and stood up hesitantly, but did not immediately go to call someone. Isn't it that I still owe you 40 yuan? A tall and muscular girl with a plump figure walked quickly over from the back row, took out a stack of scattered banknotes and patted them on the desk. I'll give it back to you. This girl is Yin Jiqiang's girlfriend, and her name Ligia has long forgotten. Ligia glanced at the angry expression on the tall and strong girl's face, then at Yin Jiqiang's gloomy face, which seemed to be about to explode in the next moment, and shook his head lightly. It's really interesting. I borrowed money and lent out my enemies. Well, don't blame me for not being friendly with classmates. You can also pay the interest. The 1-year lending interest rate of the bank is 6.48%, and borrowing 100 yuan for 1 year earns 6.48 yuan. I will generously deduct the change and pay you an additional 6 yuan. Do you still need interest? Yin Jiqiang widened his eyes in surprise and anger, then sneered and nodded. Okay, I'll give it to you. Don't give it 6 yuan, I'll give it to you 6.5 yuan, I don't owe you a penny. Then he flipped through his clothes and pockets, only to find that there were only 2 yuan left. He had no choice but to say to the tall and strong girl, do you still have money? The tall and strong girl flipped through her body and only found 3 yuan, and another yuan was made up of 50 cents and 1-cent coins. This is a bit awkward. Su Yang glanced at Ligia and smiled to smooth things out, saying, why don't we just forget it? We are all classmates, don't let a small matter hurt our harmony. Then she said to Yin Jiqiang, don't take it seriously, he's just joking. Unexpectedly, Ligia suddenly interrupted her in a cold voice, where are you from? You're not helping your boyfriend, but you're helping outsiders talk. Su Yang was stunned and looked at Ligia incredulously. The two of them have known each other for over 2 years, and this is the first time that Ligia has attacked her. In the past, Ligia has always been obedient to her and dare not even say a key word. Ding Liao and Jiang Yan, who had originally wanted to follow in the fight to make things better, swallowed back the words on their lips when they saw this scene. Yin Jiqiang patted the 5 yuan he had gathered onto his desk and said, I still owe you 1.5 yuan. After speaking, he grabbed his girlfriend and left angrily. Su Yang turned his head in anger and stopped talking to Ligia. Ding Liao and Jiang Yan both looked at Ligia with strange eyes, as if they had met him again. Ligia's usual impression is that he has a gentle personality, is easy to talk to, and can even be said to be a bit weak. They have never seen him on such a tough side before. Ligia, however, seemed as if nothing had happened before and smiled at them, saying, why are you two looking at me like this? He tore his face and demanded debt from Yin Jiqiang, not because he was really short of that 100 yuan, but because he couldn't be polite to someone like Yin Jiqiang who was shameless. During his 4 or 5 years working overseas, Ligia deeply understood a truth. He must strive for his own interests. Compromise and compromise blindly, not knowing how to refuse, cannot be exchanged for goodwill and respect, will only make others think you are weak and deceitful, and become even worse. To put it bluntly, even if you feed a dog a bone, the dog will still wag its tail, and lending money to people like Yin Jiqiang in vain will only make him feel like he is being scammed and a fool. How clever he is. Some people are really not even as good as dogs. It just feels like you're different today, Jiang Yan said, carefully examining Li Zhou up and down. What's different? The tone, expression, and attire of the speaker seem to have changed. Then you can think of me as a different person, Li Zhou joked. Everything changes, and nothing lasts forever, just like a person can never step into the same river. Even if he is reborn, he cannot go back to the foolish and innocent Li Zhou in high school. By the way, which school are you planning to apply to? Jiang Yan turned to ask. Bingqing Normal University. Are you going to apply to Bingqing Normal University? When Li Zhou said he wanted to apply to Bingqing Normal University, Jiang Yan and Ding Liao were both surprised, and Su Yang couldn't help but turn his head. Didn't you say you wanted to go to the capital with Yang Yang before? Why did you change your mind? Ding Liao said and glanced at Su Yang. I only have the confidence to take the first tier if I stay in the province, and if I want to go to the capital, I can only take the second tier, Li Zhou said in a flat tone. That's true, Ding Liao nodded. Yang Yang, what about you? Are you really going to the capital to attend university? Su Yang first gave Li Zhou a slightly complicated glance, and then said to Ding Liao, I plan to apply to Yanjing Women's College. Her grades are among the top in the liberal arts class, only slightly worse than Li Zhou, and she also received the only provincial level, 3 good students, spot in the liberal arts class, given to her by Li Zhou. She can get an additional 10 points in the college entrance examination, and the total score is less than 10 points below the first-tier admission line. If you are willing to stay in the province, there is a chance to make up for it. But if you want to go to the capital, there are very few second-tier universities that you can apply to, especially since she is still majoring in humanities, there are even fewer options available. Only Yanjing Women's College is more suitable, and the rest either have high scores or are not recruiting students in Hehe province. Then you two will have to have a long-distance relationship, one in Ice City and the other in Beijing, said Jiang Yan. Yeah, we can only go out of town. After sighing falsely, Li Zhou looked at Su Yang and said, we're going to another place. Do you have confidence? Su Yang smiled a bit unnaturally but did not answer. Previously, Li Zhou said he wanted to apply to universities in Beijing with her, but Su Yang was unwilling from the bottom of his heart. He kindly advised him to stay in Hehe province and choose a more suitable school, so as not to delay his future because of her. Now Li Zhou suddenly changed her mind and wanted to stay in Hehe province instead of going to the capital. She should have been happy, but for some reason, she felt a bit disappointed. Thank you for the tips from 9:47 p.m., Big Shower, Cheetah, Chocolate-Flavored Dog, Boived, 201710130607546999, 202102031440555015, and those who can't play 98. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Boyfriend's Rights. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Boyfriend's Rights. After a while, Li Zhou said to Su Yang, let's go too. Su Yang chuckled and said, I'll tidy up my things. After Su Yang packed up his things, Li Zhou took the slightly heavy backpack from her hand and greeted several familiar classmates such as Ding Liao. The two of them left together. Jiang Yan, who failed the exam, was in a very bad mood and had already left first. As he walked out of the classroom and down the stairs, Su Yang glanced at Li Zhou and said, Are you really not going to the capital? Li Zhou gave a somewhat cruel smile and said, Why, you can't bear to part with me. Who can't bear to part with you? Su Yangchen smiled and gave him a blank glance. Then she restrained her smile and said in a slightly complicated tone, Jiang Yan is right. You have changed so much, it really feels like you have changed someone else. Do you like me now or the old me? Li Zhou asked. Su-young pondered for a moment and smiled, I like it all. However, if you could. Speaking of which, she stopped and didn't continue. I wish I could have done it like this earlier. This sentence was spoken by Li Zhe in his heart. Su-young is a more rational and intelligent girl who matures earlier than her peers, but for an experienced driver like Li Zhe, she is too immature and can be seen through at a glance. Why do older men mature men like young girls? On the one hand, it is youthful, beautiful, and full of vitality, and on the other hand, it is relatively simple in mind and psychology, making it easier to handle. The older a woman gets, the higher her expectations will be, especially those who believe they are mentally independent and knowledgeable, which can be a disaster for men. Yang, why don't you stop going to the capital and go to college with me in Bingcheng? Li Zhe looked at Su-young and said seriously. Su-young was taken aback for a moment and couldn't help but stop. She hesitated for a few seconds and avoided Li Zhe's gaze, saying, let me think about it. Knowing that Su-young was using excuses, Li Zhe pretended not to notice and smiled, saying, okay, then you can tell me when you think about it. After leaving school, Li Zhe didn't directly take Su-young to the bus station. Instead, he found a supermarket and bought her a bunch of snacks he liked to eat, so she could take them with her on the way. Potato chips, shrimp sticks, candy, chocolate, beef jerky, puffed biscuits, small cakes, as well as milk, yogurt, drinks, etc., were packed in a big bag, costing nearly 100 yuan. After coming out of the supermarket holding a large bag of snacks, Su-young smiled and looked at Li Zhe with a coquettish expression, saying, you bought too much, and the road is not far. How can I eat it? If you can't eat it, take it home and eat slowly. Li Zhe paused for a moment and then said, if I don't make a fool of myself today, I won't come back. Why should I give this money to Yin Jiqiang in vain? It would be great to come back and buy snacks for you. Su-yang's smile froze as he looked at Li Zhe's gentle and indulgent gaze, feeling both moved and guilty in his heart. Turns out he turned around and asked people for money because of her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak for Yin Jiqiang just now. I just felt that everyone was classmates and there was no need to get too stiff. Classmate. Li Zhe chuckled lightly. Don't worry about this kind of student. He reached out and rubbed Su-yang's head, saying with a smile, what are you apologizing for? I wasn't angry with you. I was angry with you just now, and it was just a show to them. Su-young smiled lightly and tiptoed to give Li Zhe a quick kiss on the face. Then, feeling a bit embarrassed, he ran away holding the snack bag. Li Zhe reached out to touch the place she had kissed, and couldn't help but smile. This is the first time Su-young has taken the initiative to please him. Sure enough, good girlfriends are all trained. He was just too kind to Su-young back then, which completely spoiled her and didn't care about his feelings at all. Even just now, he dismantled his platform in front of outsiders and helped others down the stairs. How could anyone help someone else instead of their own boyfriend? More training is needed. Li Zhe stopped a small bus that waved to stop, took Su-young to the long-distance bus station, and helped her buy a ticket. The two of them waited in the waiting area for a while before the ticket inspector started checking tickets. Those who go to Binjiang can now check their tickets. I'm leaving. Su-young took the initiative to hug Li Zhe, his tone a bit reluctant. Did you just leave like this? Li Zhe hugged her slender waist with his back. Su-young stared at him and said angrily, what else do you want? When waiting for the car just now, Li Zhe didn't behave honestly while holding her. Li Zhe remained silent and lowered his head to kiss her lips. Su-young quickly turned his head to one side and avoided his kiss. What are you doing? So many people are watching. She spoke and looked around. Seeing that no one seemed to pay attention to them, I finally felt relieved. The atmosphere of this era is not as open as it was a decade later, and young couples dare to kiss in public as if there were no one around them. When they are intimate, they will avoid some people. At least for Su Yang, hugging and embracing in public is the limit she can accept. Don't worry about them. After Leisha finished speaking, he reached out to hold Su Yang's head and half forcefully kissed her. This time, it was no longer just a touch and a split, but allowed Su Yang to truly experience what a hot kiss is. Su Yang was a bit scared by his bold move, frantically pushing and shoving Leisha, but Leisha's arm tightly wrapped around her delicate waist, and she couldn't push him at all. Suddenly, she let out a sigh and instantly widened her eyes. The door was knocked open and all the positions were lost, but Leisha succeeded. Gradually, Su Yang no longer struggled and instead cooperated unfamiliarity. I kissed her for 2 or 3 minutes until Su Yang felt a bit breathless, and Leisha finally let her go. I really don't have any experience, I can't even breathe. How do you feel? Leisha asked with a smile. How could you do this? I've already told you, don't mess around with so many people. Su Yang blushed and said angrily. What, you don't like it? You were quite invested just now. Hey, why are you hitting me? Su Yang became angry with embarrassment. Are you still going to Binjiang? We'll be driving soon, the ticket inspector nearby reminded loudly. Su Yang reacted and said urgently, oh my, I have to leave quickly, otherwise I won't be able to catch the bus. Leisha did not let go of Su Yang, still holding her tightly, feeling her soft and warm body. How about not leaving today? Seeing Leisha's gaze fixed on her, as if he was about to eat her, Su Yang's heart trembled with an indescribable panic. No way. Why not? Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. Su Yang doesn't believe Leisha's guarantee at all, especially after feeling something. I bought all the tickets, it's in vain if I don't need them, she found a reason. Okay, then I'll take you to the car. Leisha didn't insist anymore. As the saying goes, there is still a long way to go. There is no need to rush too much. Before the start of college, he will definitely have all the rights to be his boyfriend. Thank you to Feihong for stepping on the snow 123, Chia 123, Lu Fei, Bai Can for entering the pit once every 10 years, Bing Cod for getting drunk, what can I do? Lin Li, spend so much money that I can't afford it, and everyone for their rewards. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Douge sorry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Douge sorry. The bus slowly started moving, and Su Yang watched through the window as Leisha's figure gradually disappeared from his sight. There was a feeling of disappointment, and in an instant, he felt empty in his heart, as if he had lost something. Leisha's sudden change indeed surprised her, truly giving her a feeling of love. Especially in the waiting room just now, Leisha was in public. Her domineering and gentle behavior was what she imagined love should be like. For a moment, Su Yang had an impulse to agree to Leisha that he would not go to the capital anymore and would go to the ice city with him. But her rationality restrained this impulse. Going to university in the capital and watching the Olympics is her wish, and it won't change for anyone. She hopes to be with Leisha, but she won't let her future slip away just to be with him. Watching the bus drive away, Leisha withdrew his gaze, sighed lightly in his heart, and turned around to leave the bus station. If Su Yang is really willing to change his college entrance examination preferences and agree to go to Ice City with him, then he will seriously fall in love with her. I won't just talk about rights, not obligations and responsibilities. As a boyfriend, he will fulfill all the obligations and responsibilities he should fulfill. Regardless of whether the two can reach the end, he will at least give Su Yang a beautiful first love. He has already given Su Yang a chance, but if she doesn't cherish it herself, then no wonder he. Leisha's slightly shaken heart became hard again. His biggest weakness is that his heart is relatively soft and not ruthless enough. Therefore, in the previous life, I suffered a lot in terms of emotions. I have been genuinely interested in the beneficiaries more than once, but the results are all indescribable. Several failed emotional experiences have made Leisha understand a truth. One can be moved, but not moved, let alone influenced by emotions. On the way home, Ligia found a mobile business hall and charged 200 yuan into his phone. In this era, online payment was not as developed as it was more than a decade later. Game recharging and reading novels were mainly paid through mobile phone bills. Alternatively, you could go to the bank to open online banking, but this can be quite troublesome and require inserting a U.shield during transactions. After arriving home, Ligia first cooked a bowl of noodles and added 2 eggs for lunch. Doing fruit wholesale is particularly busy. Zhao Xinmei has little time to cook, and Ligia has been buying and eating on the street since childhood. He learned how to cook when he was working overseas. Eating out abroad is too expensive, and in order to save money, he can only learn to buy groceries and cook. Carrying the cooked noodles back to the room, Ligia sat down at his desk, opened his computer, logged into the writers section of Qidian, and checked if the novel had been reviewed. The work Breaking Through the Sky has been approved and can now be uploaded as a chapter. A new message notification has been added to the author's back end. Finally passed the review, Ligia said softly. At this point, it is quite cumbersome for newcomers to start publishing books. They need to first apply for an author number, upload the opening part of a work of about 300 to 500 words, and conduct content review. The review time is within 48 hours. Only after the review is approved can the author account be logged in and a new work be created. After creating a new work, it is necessary to continuously upload more than 3 chapters of content for further review. Ligia clicked on the page of Douge and looked at the data. He found that there were only 5 clicks, 3 recommended tickets, and 1 bookmark. This is a bit too tragic. No way, the new author has no popularity and can only start from scratch. For the novel to be written, Ligia thought, but ultimately chose to copy Douge. The most influential novel in the history of online literature is probably Douge Zangqi, with the highest click-through rate in online literature and over 10 million physical book sales, affecting hundreds of millions of people. If you want to create a best-selling book, of course you need to choose the one with the greatest influence to copy. As long as Douge is written, even if Ligia does nothing after his rebirth, this book will be enough for him to eat for a lifetime. During the 3 days after the college entrance examination, Ligia was busy brainstorming novels, writing outlines, and collecting manuscripts. Douge is Tudo's second novel, and the writing style is not very good, it can even be said to be a bit lacking. What startled me? First, I was taken aback, then. And then there was the terrifying feeling of being exhausted. But Tudo is truly the most talented online writer, with an unparalleled grasp of the rhythm, hatred, and pleasure of the novel. Douge can be said to be the ceiling of Shuangwen. Ligia's writing style was excellent when he was in school, and he even published articles in magazines. During his years working overseas, he worked part-time writing books in his spare time and also wrote a high-quality novel with an average order of over 10,000 yuan. He considered himself to have a talent for writing. It is still quite difficult to copy Douge now, and it needs to be repeatedly revised in order to write the original work with the same sense of satisfaction. Before writing, Ligia thought he could earn over 10,000 yuan per day, but after writing, he realized that earning 6,000 yuan per day was already the limit. The full text of Douge is 5.3 million words, and Tudo wrote it for over 2 years. Ligia could not have spent 2 or 3 years writing a book. So when he wrote the outline, he made deletions to the novel, removing the realm of Dousheng. Above Douzun was Dou-di, and any plot suspected of water injection was also deleted. Only the humiliation of divorce, the 3-year agreement, the battle of Yunlan sect, collecting strange flames, rescuing the medicine elder, and other important plot points were retained, with word count controlled between 2 and 3 million words. In this way, the pace of the novel will be faster and the reading experience will be stronger. Of course, there are also drawbacks. As the number of words in a novel decreases, the income naturally decreases. In order to make more money, there are few online articles that do not add water. In addition to being a drag, the nickname for potatoes is also water beans. Leisure clicked to open and save the manuscript, copied and pasted it, and then clicked to send it. He also uploaded a chapter of over 2,000 words. It's not that he doesn't want to pass on 2 more chapters, but in the past 3 days, apart from the conceptual outline, he only wrote 6 chapters, 2,000 words per chapter, uploaded 4 chapters, and now there are only 2 chapters left for manuscript. Always leave 2 chapters for emergency response. After uploading the chapter, Leisure closed the writers section and clicked on the starting page. Evil Spirit Ling Ran, Veterinary Medicine of the Other Realm, Excellent Household, Legend of the Mage, Black Mountain Demon, Infinite Terror, Celebration of the Year, Simulation City of Netizens, Counterfeit Heroes, Stealing Ming. Leisure browsed through the novels on the list, and his gaze finally fell on the top-ranked novel on the new book list, Star Transformation. Starry Transformation is Tomato's 3rd novel and a key work in establishing his divine character. It has been less than a month since its release and has not yet reached the new book list. Leisure clicked on Star Transformation, found the book friend group number on the homepage, and applied to add a group. Then I fully subscribed to the other 2 books under the name of Tomato, Legend of Star Peak, and Inch Mang, and took screenshots of the entire subscription. Leisure is planning to ask for a chapter recommendation from Tomatoes, which is like a small recommendation from a great author. Although tomatoes are not yet great gods, they can still be considered quasi-great gods, and a chapter promotion can bring considerable popularity. Only by making Dopa popular as soon as possible can we make money earlier. The next chapter will be updated in the afternoon. Thank you. Feihong steps on the snow 123, Qingxiao has a way to finally arrive, 9:47 a.m., naming effortlessly, Book Friends 20230429091055459, Triumph 007, Fantasy 502, Tianji Duoling, Gu Liancheng, Book Friends 20210129020307605, a few tips. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Great God, give a chapter recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Great God, give a chapter recommendation. Soon, the group membership application was approved. Leisure found Tomato's QQ in the group and sent him a message. Dashin, I am your fan and I really like your book, Inch Mang, as well as your newly opened book, Star Transformation. I also tried to write a book. Can you please give me a chapter recommendation? Then I sent over the full order screenshot. What Leisure said is not a lie. He first came into contact with online literature in his freshman year, when he particularly liked Star Transformation. At that time, he could also be said to be a fan of Tomatoes, but he only watched pirated versions. Now I have fully booked Inch Mang and Star Peak Legend, which can be considered as making up for the money I spent watching pirated versions back then. After waiting for a while, seeing no response, I guessed that the other party might not be online or busy. Leisure no longer waited and created a new document to start writing a book. After writing for over an hour, the code came out with half a chapter of content, and then the QQ prompt sound came on. Realizing that it was very likely Tomato had replied, he immediately clicked on QQ and it was indeed Tomato who had replied. Okay, please send me the book title and chapter recommendation. Deshen is quite easy to talk about. Leisure smiled. It was only after 8 p.m. that Zhao Xinmei and Li Liqiao returned together. Ordinary people do business to earn hard money. In order to maintain a good reputation in the fruit wholesale market, Zhao Xinmei goes out early and returns late every day. During the peak season of fruit wholesale sales, I have to go out at 3 or 4 in the morning and can only go home at 10 or 11 in the evening. As soon as Zhao Xinmei opened the door, she smelled the aroma of the food and the sound of stir-frying in the kitchen. Who is cooking? Who else can there be, Xiao Zhibei? Li Liqiao said. He can't cook, Zhao Xinmei was a bit skeptical. At this moment, Li Jie poked his head out of the kitchen and said, "Mom, have you come back? Give me another dish. I'll finish cooking and then I can eat." "Xiao Jie, why did you suddenly know how to cook? Who did you learn from?" Zhao Xinmei was both surprised and surprised. "Do you still need to learn how to cook? Anyone can do it, right?" "You're wrong, not everyone knows how to cook, so your dad doesn't," Zhao Xinmei said, glancing at Li Liqiao. Li Jie also glanced at Cheap's father and thought to himself, "Mom, you're wrong. He doesn't know how to cook, he just doesn't want to cook for you. He knows how to cook for the little widow." At the dinner table, Li Jie's dishes received unanimous praise from Zhao Xinmei and Li Liqiao. "Xiao Jie's stir-fried dish is really good." "The taste is indeed good," Li Liqiao agreed with a smile. "By the way, Xiao Jie, you went to school today to estimate your score. How many points are you expected to get?" Zhao Xinmei turned to say. "About 570 points. Li Jie said 50 points less, putting his score below the first tier. "Shouldn't it be possible to cross a line?" "Well, it's basically stable." "That's good," Zhao Xinmei said with a smile as she calmed down. After finishing his meal, Li Jie went back to his room to continue typing. In the afternoon, he only typed out a chapter and a half, which is more than 3,000 words, mainly because cooking at night delayed a lot of time. He is going to stay up late tonight to code and write 2 more chapters. In the next few days, he will be very busy and won't have much time to code. However, Li Jiezai's code was less than 1,000 words, and his state was interrupted again. Zhao Xinmei knocked on the door and walked in with a glass of milk. "Have a glass of milk." She placed the milk on the table and glanced at the computer screen. "What are you busy with?" "I want to use my vacation time to write something online and earn some money," Li Jie said lightly. "Can you still make money by writing online?" Zhao Xinmei was clearly skeptical. "Be careful not to be deceived. Also, the flyer I gave you, the one about learning computers for free, you can go and take a look tomorrow. Anyway, it's free. Learning more things is always a good thing." "Okay." Li Jie smiled and nodded. There's no need for Zhao Xinmei to say this, he will also go. Whether or not he can get that 250,000 yuan bonus depends entirely on tomorrow. "There is one more thing, I would like to ask your thoughts." Zhao Xinmei paused and continued, "It's not easy to do fruit wholesale now. After working hard for a year, I can't make much money in the end. I'm thinking of changing careers and doing something else. Your dad said he wants to buy a big car to drive long distances and do some shopping. I definitely don't trust him doing it alone, but now that you have finished your college entrance examination and are in college, you don't have to worry about me anymore. I can run a car with your father and watch him. What do you think? Buying a cart to transport goods. He wants to roll up money and run away with the little widow." Li Jie thought so in his heart, but he didn't say it. He has been holding back these days, not exposing Li Liqiao's infidelity, just not wanting to startle the snake. Zhao Xinmei has a personality that cannot hide things. If she found out, she would definitely show it on her face or directly ask Li Liqiao for questioning. "Mom, if you want to do it, Li Jie smiled and said. When people lack confidence in their own decisions, they will subconsciously seek opinions from others, not genuinely wanting to hear different opinions, but just need their approval to increase their confidence. In the previous life, Zhao Xinmei also inquired about Li Jie's ideas, but at that time Li Jie was not very supportive. He didn't have any foresight to guess that his cheap father was going to roll up money and run away, but he knew very well that Li Liqiao had a lazy personality and was greedy for enjoyment. He didn't really believe he could bear the hardship of driving large goods for long distances. However, it did not change Zhao Xinmei's decision. After Zhao Xinmei left, Li Jie stood up from the computer and walked closer to the window, gazing at the distant lights and neon lights outside the window, lost in thought. The financial power of the family has always been in the hands of Zhao Xinmei. In order to get money and run away with the small widow's money, Li Liqiao fabricated an excuse, saying that he wanted to buy bulk goods for transportation, and said that his college classmate had a way out. He could buy a large truck for 400,000 yuan and could buy it for 36.70000 yuan. The total amount of savings and cash at home is only 260,000 to 70,000 yuan, and I borrowed nearly 100,000 yuan from relatives and friends, which is enough to make up 370,000 yuan. Li Liqiao, under the guise of buying a car, ran to the south with money and a young widow to buy a house and open a shop, enjoying himself for a while. Moreover, the wholesale business of fruits will continue to deteriorate, not only due to market reasons, but also because Li Liqiao is damaging his family in personal interests, and has been greedy for money to subsidize the fruit stalls of young widows. These things were all voluntarily confessed by Li Liqiao many years later when he was driven out of the house by his son, who had grown up as a young widow, and wanted to find Li Zhe, his own son, to retire. This time, Li Zhe will definitely not let his cheap father succeed again. If you want to be a scapegoat, you can help a young widow raise a child, provided that you leave the house clean. He will also make them all spit out the money they have been greedy for from home. Thinking of this, Li Zhe's eyes gradually became somewhat sharp. Thank you, Baikan once every 10 years enters the pit, late mountain 33, quiet night breeze, a few rewards. End of this chapter.